Hans, thank you so much. I have the great honor to be standing here with you, one of the living legends of the venture capital scene, amongst others, founding partner of 𝗙𝗂𝗂. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, congratulations on closing the fund in November last year. Can you tell us a little bit about the vision and mission of 𝗙𝗂𝗂? What do you have in the cards?
Yeah, you know, the macro level of Africa is, from a global perspective, extremely interesting going forward because it's 1.4 billion people and 60% are below 25 years old. So we have about 700 million young people with a mobile phone in their hand, connected to the internet for the first time, so they are connected to the world and the world is connected to them. And we strongly believe that this young cohort of well-educated young Africans with a mobile phone in their hand will do everything what we do today and everywhere else in the world, but they will change the African continent in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right.
And we think there's an impact opportunity here, but it's also a fantastic investment opportunity. So we have raised $200 million, and we found a spot in the market where we think there is a need, and that's actually in growth capital, so venture growth.
Okay.
So there's quite a lot of funds, great funds that can do pre-seed or Series A investments on the continent, but there are very few that can write a little bit bigger checks to help the company to go to the next step in the growth phase. So that's the main purpose for the fund. And then another important part is that we actually have a team, an African team, 100% African, working on the African continent. So we're not fly in, fly out money, we are here for real.
What do you think are currently the most interesting sectors to look into when it comes to the African continent? Where is it really happening? Where's the music?
So, you know, just think about it. You know, if you're a young person, you have your first salary, and you want to buy something online. How do you buy it online if you don't have a bank account? So fintech is still a huge opportunity, and it's still a very important infrastructure in the African continent to on-bank all Africans in neobanks or whatever bank systems to actually help them to be able to transact with other people on great distances. So that's still a huge opportunity. And then on infrastructure, logistics and everything else, there is also obviously a platform that needs to be built. And fantastic investment opportunities.
Opportunities everywhere you look. Yet, interestingly, globally, Africa as a continent is really still largely underrepresented. Only 1% of global funding goes into this phenomenal and dynamic continent. Why do you think that is, and what can be done to change that?
So I think Africa has been viewed as a commodity economy, right? And I think, you know, the rest of the world is now learning about that. If you want to approach a young person 10, 15 years from now, he will most likely be African, right? So it's the only continent on the earth that's actually have a demographic curve with a lot of young people growing up. The average age in Africa right now is 20. In a couple of years, it's 19. So if you're a company, you need to have a relationship with Africa, which means that more money will be invested. So I think from this 1%, you're going to see quite rapid growth of much more money coming into the continent. And then if we also can show the world that it's actually profitable to invest in Africa, more money will come automatically because capital always kind of seeks way to make profit, right? Yeah.
So since you've been really coming to Africa for a long time, I think you said over more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Are there cultural differences in which way the investment process is undertaken here, as opposed to Europe or the US?
I think the investment process is the same. I think, you know, since we're investing in people, we're investing in entrepreneurs and teams, it's so important to have that local cultural contact. So if you fly in to Cape Town or whatever and meet the team and then fly out again, I think that's a recipe for missing a lot of interesting opportunities, but also maybe investing in the wrong one.
Yeah.
So you need actually to be on the ground. You need to have a strategy how you're going to be on the ground with the team that is actually African, who's grown up, who knows the culture, who knows the neighborhoods, who knows the everything around it, right? You know, I usually say we should know what the entrepreneur eats for breakfast. Then we're in the right place.
That's very true. And actually in line with that, I'd be curious, given all your experience that you've collected over the past year, what do you personally still look most into when you're assessing startups, when you're looking at pitch decks? What is it that still makes it or breaks it for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, the most entrepreneurs, they come with a product, and then they come with a market, and then they come with a team.
Right.
And we look at the way around. We look at the team, we say, okay guys, you know, what's your passion? Are you glimmering in your eyes when you're talking about your idea? Are you really selling yourself? Are you able to sell the vision of your company to other people, to employees? So that's one very important part. And then we look at the market. What market are you addressing? Is it a big market? Is it an emerging market? Is it growing? Thirdly, we also look at the business model. How are you going to sell this product? No? What's the most efficient way? Maybe they invented a new business model. And the last thing we actually look at is the product. It's important, but that's the order that we kind of evaluate when we look into a potential investment.
And the product is probably the one that's most likely to change also over the course of
Exactly. You can always pivot your service or your product later on.
Last question, I'd be curious to know, we're speaking obviously about long-term future and success on the African continent, which I think is also only possible when the education, you know, is happening and is done right, especially looking at the next entrepreneurs, where they come from. They're currently in school, maybe high school, maybe even kindergarten, but then university. What is your take on how the educational sector can be improved and really grow those entrepreneurs that we really need here?
Yeah, you know, that's such an important question, and I think, you know, for every nation around the world, the most way, you know, to become very competitive as a nation is all dependent on how educated your population is.
Yes.
So education is kind of the core for every country to kind of grow and become prosperous. So having said that, Africa can actually take advantage of the digital revolution and in EdTech. They can actually talk to a teacher in London or in New York or wherever, right? They suddenly can access the same information and the same way of learning. They don't have to be bound to a local teacher anymore.